Hello, hobby friends, and welcome to today's episode of Hobby Talk. My name is David Baez, and in today's episode, we are going to dive into the world of starting lineups with a mega, and I stress mega, collector. He has the most impressive collection of the acclaimed sports action figures that I've ever seen, and today he's going to share with us more about this great hobby and his collection. With that being said, I'm excited to welcome Joe Curcio to Hobby Talk. Joe, welcome. What's up, buddy?
Thanks, David. How are you today?
I'm doing all right. And I'm telling you right out of the gate, I said it right before I hit the record button. I am so entranced by that impressive background, buddy. That is really cool. Let's start right out of the gate. I always love to understand the beginning of a hobbyist and how they got into collecting, you know, whatever their passion is. So right out of the gate, tell me how you started with the starting lineup hobby. You know, that first piece, or what sports or players that you focused on right out of the gate. How did it start for you?
Well, I'm 45, so taking back to the late 80s, sports cards were the thing, as I'm sure, as I know you know. And so I was, buying 88 Donruss, like they were going out of style. And a cousin of mine started buying starting lineup figures. And I thought they were pretty cool, but I was still so hooked on the baseball card market that, it was fun, but I wasn't interested. A few years go by, it's 1990, and I was in a Hills department store with my parents, and there was a Don Mattingly on the shelf, and I'm a huge Yankee fan, and I bought the Don Mattingly, and I've been hooked since 1990. So,
hey Joe, I gotta ask you, did they like say, hey, if you behave, I'll buy you that Don Mattingly?
I just, and they were maybe $4 or $5 at the time. They weren't very expensive. And I bought it and I brought it home, and I don't even know where. I didn't open it. I kept it in the package. And, from there on in, I bought a couple more and a couple more. And at the time, I was also working at a baseball card shop. And
very cool.
Yeah, it was the dream, living the dream at 15. And yeah. They were just getting more and more popular. And I realized that these are also becoming popular on a secondary market at shows and stuff. And I started buying them to sell as well. And I turned a hobby into a business. And, so it was the best of both worlds.
Yeah, I can imagine. When you're really into something, Joe, I know, at least for me, it's so easy to buy, but so hard to sell.
It really is. My wife would love you more if I sold it all,
Too funny. Oh man. So tell us a little bit about your collection, Joe, current day. Like, I mean, that evolution from that Yankee, that Don Mattingly, that those first, few that you started collecting, I'm assuming Yankees and baseball, into this amazing collection you have right now.
Yeah, I mean, I had a lot back in the day, and as time went on and I got older, I actually sold a lot. And there was a point in my life, I might have been down maybe 2 starting lineup figures, believe it or not. And wow. Probably in the around 2000, 2001. And then something just clicked again. And I went back into it really hot and heavy. And I haven't turned back since.
That's awesome. So how many total figures do you have, Joe?
Starting lineup wise, I don't know. It's in the thousands. There's no doubt about it. A lot of people think I own every one. I do not own every one. Not even close. I think there's, I'm not sure how many thousand, maybe, I believe it's a number of 13,000. I could be off with that. I'm not sure. Total made.
Right.
I have 13,000. I don't have them all, but I have a good portion. I style my collecting on favorite teams, favorite players, and I love variations, and I also love short printed figures. That's my base. I love figures that are only like 1 per case. So I'll go after that, because it might even be a name like, I don't know, Jim Eisenreich. Okay. He was 1 per case. Now, not everyone loves Jim, not all these Jim Eisenreich fans are out there, but he's 1 per case. So it's a shorter printed figure. It's a rarer figure.
Right. It's interesting in the starting lineup hobby, and please correct me if I'm wrong, but I get the impression with the little that I've gotten into it that the rare and even more expensive at times tends to be the less known player that had that shorter print run, right?
Absolutely. Back when they were first released back in the late 80s, they were released regionally. So if you lived, and we'll use this example right now, in Utah, Utah Jazz, 88 Utah Jazz basketball figures are smoking hot right now. But they're only released in that area of the country. So if you lived in Pennsylvania, you wanted a Karl Malone, you're not going to find one. Not going to.
Interesting.
And, of course, there was no internet back then. So those 88 to 90 figures that are regional, you have, some crazy names. It's like, whoa, Alvin Davis from the Mariners. Like, some guys that are Mariner fans back when they were younger now are looking for that Alvin Davis figure and be like, well, this isn't that easy to find, because it was only released regionally.
Right. For me, it's very interesting. It's very unique that the starting lineup figures, as a collector, it's that much more, especially back in the day, to your point, where there was no internet, it's that much more difficult to collect if you were looking at the broader picture of not just collecting your favorite team. Like you being a Yankee fan and being relatively local, right? It was easy for you to get Yankee players and even Mets players and stuff. But if you were a fan of the Minnesota Timberwolves, I mean, how are you getting those figures, right?
Back in the early days, they put a checklist on the back of the package. So, an 88 baseball figure, there's, I believe, 168 players in the 88 baseball set. So you turn around that package of your Don Mattingly and you see all these guys, and you go to the store, you want someone from, I don't know, the Angels, and you can't find this guy in Pennsylvania from the Angels. You want a Mike Witt in the worst way. But you can't be like, well, why can't I find this figure? People didn't know that they were released regionally. Customers had no idea. So it made it interesting. A couple of years later, Kenner did allow you to actually phone them. There was an 800 number to call that you could buy the team sets. So it was another way to get them, but still wasn't that easy.
Right. I'm glad you mentioned Kenner. Joe, do you mind, and I imagine a lot of the viewers that are going to watch this episode might be more on the beginning, the beginner level on starting lineups. Can you dive a little bit into, the history of starting lineups and, just from the manufacturing side of things and production side of things?
Sure. Well, Kenner, of course, big company for Star Wars and toys like that. Pat McAnally, a football player, this was his idea, and he brought it to Kenner back in '87, and they bit, and that's how the ball got rolling. And at first, I don't think it was a big seller. I think a lot of figures sat in the store, blew out in bargain bins. They were sent back to Kenner and destroyed. And then back in, I guess, about 91, 92, for whatever reason, the hobby really took off. And in 93, Kenner was bought out by Hasbro.
Okay.
And Hasbro, of course, we all know Hasbro, a massive toy company.
Right.
And they kind of, I don't want to say ruined the hobby, but they made so many different things, different like kind of subsets, stadium stars, classic doubles, which are wonderful, but it was just overkill. And by 97, all these things were out. And you could tell the customer, the fan base was dropping off a bit.
Right.
By 2000, 2001, they were done.
So it sounds like in your world, Joe, just like in baseball cards, you guys were the victim of like that junk era, right?
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, by 95, they were really flooding the market. I mean, they were extremely hot still. It was still a very popular hobby, but there was so much out there. And, 96, 97, then you were starting to see at the shows, at the conventions, because they had Kenner conventions, figures for $2. That's a bad sign. You start seeing a figure that was retailed for $6, $7 being blown out for $2. There's an issue on hand.
Yeah, for sure.
You still had your popular players and your short printed figures that were, expensive. And, like a 96 Kevin Garnett was like a $75 figure back in 96 because it was new, it was a starting lineup. But, by the end of the show, and the end of, late 90s and 2000, the stuff was readily available. Right. Tell it was the end.
Yeah, that's interesting. So I'm glad you brought up that piece. I was curious from a broader perspective here, Joe. What are some of like what are the rarest pieces in existence for a starting lineup?
Well, of course, going back to your old stuff, your regional stuff, there's lots of rare figures. 88, 89 football. I mean, of course, the first one that comes to collector's mind is 89 Bill Fralick. That's the holy grail, no doubt about it.
Really?
Yeah, yes. 89 Bill Fralick. He was on the Falcons. I don't know how familiar you are with Bill Fralick.
I think he was an offensive lineman, right?
Correct, and it's a very popular pose for the starting line figures back in '89. He was on the Falcons. The Falcons, were not a good team. They're not now either, but back then they weren't a good team. Sorry, Falcons fans. But it's a popular pose. It's a very attractive red jersey figure, and it was regionally released, and probably many were destroyed because many didn't sell.
Right.
That makes that figure the holy grail.
Wow.
But then you have more modern stuff, more of a variation. There's a Jackie Robinson wearing a number 44 jersey, a Patrick Waugh with no goatee. There is a brown-haired Rocky Marciano. These are more variations.
Yeah.
That for whatever reason they got out and quickly changed.
Yeah. So it's similar to like certain baseball card print runs where they make like an error card, if you will, and then okay.
The no-name Frank Thomas in 1990.
Right.
That's like the Jackie Robinson with number 44 on it. Same idea. It's for some reason it got out. It was an error, a mistake, but some didn't make the market.
Gotcha. Joe, I think I read somewhere, and please correct me if I'm wrong here, but I thought I read somewhere that there was also, in terms of rare, pieces, that there was a year that starting lineups came out and they substituted the card with like an upper deck card or something to that effect.
Yes. In 1997, it was Kenner or Hasbro lost the license to Mattel. So in 97, they towards the end of the year, they did make a 98 set, but towards the end of the year, they made a 97 set and they released it to Sears and JCPenney. And they inserted these upper deck cards. Some are easy to get. Some are nearly impossible to get. Kenny Anderson is a tougher one to find. Jason Kidd is harder to find. But the two grails are Alonzo Mourning and then David Robinson. David Robinson, there's one in existence that I know of.
Wow.
And I own it.
Really?
But these cards, they're actually 98 upper deck cards. But in 98, those figures, the Alonzo Mourning, the David Robinson, they were not in that set. So something went haywire somewhere. And now, as for the card, I mean, there has to be more than I know of another card, another David Robinson card. So obviously they didn't make two cards. There's no way, cards come in sheets. The same thing for starting lineup cards. But something, for whatever reason, those figures just never got pushed out. But the only way you could get those couple of certain ones, not all the upper decks. This is a confusing story. I understand this, and probably it's a whole episode to explain it. But a couple of those upper deck hard to find figures were only released in the Sears and JCPenney sets.
Sears and JCPenney. So when you say Sears and JCPenney sets, they was the packaging exclusive to them, or was it just like sold to them exclusively?
Yeah, it was just a catalog. You go into the catalog and you could order that. There's nothing special about the actual package. They came in. I think they do say JC. I could be wrong about that. I don't remember now, but the packaging to the figure itself, there's nothing different.
Got it. Okay. I think you just answered my next question to you about, going back to your collection, about what was the most difficult piece for you to obtain and why. I have a feeling that David Robinson had some, maybe it was up there.
The David Robinson I got on accident. No lie. When I see those sets come up, I try to grab them, and I'll grab them and I'll break them open out of the package just to see what upper deck figures I get. And I was looking for the Kenny Anderson, which I already had, but for the price of the set, I couldn't turn it down. And I'm looking for the Kenny Anderson, and I'm pulling them out, and it's a fairly large set, maybe 40 to 50 figures in the set. And I pull out David Robinson. I'm like, David Robinson never came with an upper deck card. I know this. And I had to go online quick and look. I'm like, yeah, this isn't right. about 4 or 5 years ago now. And like I said, to this day, I do know of another card, just a plain card. I don't know how the person got it. but I only know of my David Robinson in the package. So it's
That's awesome. I have a feeling that's not leaving your awesome collection back there.
I received some offers for it, but I mean, it's one of those things. It'd have to be something ridiculous because you don't know what to ask for it.
Yeah.
I actually don't have it displayed, but it's put away.
Yeah. That's next level, right?
Just, I don't know. I don't even know what to say about it.
So if somebody comes with the Atlanta Falcons piece, you might trade it there, right?
As the hardest figure I have, I mean, I'm a big prototype collector, and they are the hardest things to find, especially in nice condition. So that's probably my grail pieces are my prototypes.
Gotcha. Okay. Very cool. So talk to me a little bit about, from a more general perspective here, the hobby and about the typical starting lineup collector. Are they more sport card based collectors or toy based collectors, or is it a bit of both?
Years ago, it was definitely more, I think, of a sports thing. Guys, I think it was guys just like me in the card business or card collecting hobby, and branched off to starting the lineup, because starting lineup came with a card, so it was like the best of both worlds. And so it was all sports guys just really getting into this, father sons collecting together, which is really cool. Nowadays, I think it's a lot of toys right now are very hot, both modern and vintage. Very, very collectible, very hot. So I think it's guys just kind of branching off into different things, as I did myself. I collected starting lineup since 1990, and back in the early to mid 2000s, I started buying Star Wars and GI Joe stuff that from when I was a kid. All my childhood toys are long gone. They're all gone. So I was going back and buying all this other stuff. And I think that's what's going on with today's collector. They had the stuff as a kid, or maybe they remember collecting with their dad or their parents or whoever, and so they're kind of getting back into it. So I think it's a little bit of both, I guess I should say.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, I certainly don't have this big collection, but as you well know, I'm big into more of the card element. But I do have a few starting lineups, and a lot of it is, you touched on a lot of the reasons why I personally get it. It was kind of like the best of both worlds, that iconic, maybe pose of one of my favorite players, but also knowing that there was a card in there which really what I gravitated to. So.
And and to any new collectors out there, I suggest just start small. You want to get into the starting lineup hobby, I highly recommend it, because it's for the most part an affordable hobby. It's very enjoyable, and if I believe you're a Clemente fan, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah.
So get your favorite figures. There's 3 or 4 Clementes out there. You get those. Just start small, enjoy that, and then maybe go after other pirates or whatever you like. If you go all out in the starting lineup hobby, you're going to burn yourself out. There's too much out there. Too much out there. So take it slow and enjoy it.
Yeah, no, that's great advice. And yeah, to your point, I don't know if you've noticed, but I actually just bought 2 Clementes last week off the Facebook group. Yeah, I'm hooked. I'm totally hooked. Yeah, that's awesome.
Good job then.
So talk to me. I imagine in the world of toys, Joe, that you have the same element as in cards, where there is authentication and there is, grading, and there are like the factors of grading or creating a condition for that starting lineup figure. Can you break that down a little bit for me on how that works?
Yeah, I mean, of course, PSA does grade starting lineup cards. That's definitely no secret that they're out there. As for grading the actual packaged figure, AFA is a company and CAS is also a company. Their CAS is a little newer. Both great companies. I think they both do a fantastic job. CAS will also grade them loose. AFA will not grade them loose. Again, it's just collector's preference. If you're going to start grading, it's expensive. It's probably between $50 to $75 to get one figure graded, between their fees, the shipping fees.
Wow.
Stuff like that. Yeah. So, if you're looking to do it for a turnaround to make money, be careful. If you get a low grade, your figure is going to be worth less than it would be if it wasn't graded. You know, if you're confident it's a high-end piece, you're confident to come back in 85, which is usually the magical number, or higher, then, you know, you have a nice little investment on your hands.
Right.
Personally, I don't grade. I have a few things graded more for just personal preference because I like the look of it.
Right.
But I don't grade to flip it to make more money. That's just not my game.
Understood. I was surprised when you were talking about the one grading company that actually grades them out of the package. Can you enlighten me a little bit more on how that works? Like, how do they encapsulate a figure that essentially is in different positions, right? And can, you know, it could be batting, it could be, you know, dunking a basketball. Like, how do they do that?
Right. Yeah. I mean, I don't know the science behind it. You know, that they make sure it's secure in all points. That it should be secure.
Okay.
Football figures, like they'll put the helmet on the side, which looks really cool. That way the helmet's off the figure.
Oh, very cool.
Yeah, that CAS will also do some custom work. If you wanted to get, like, you had a loose 89 Falcon set, there's 3 players. So you want to get all 3 of those guys graded in one little case, they'll do that for you. And they do a great job. They really do.
That's fantastic.
Grading aspect on a loose figure, they look at pretty much the paint, if there's any scuffs or yellowing or, you know, overspray of different, you know, on the socks or something. And that's how they grade. Grading a carded figure, they, of course, look for the cardboard, the plastic clamshell, the bubble, any damages there. And, of course, they still do grade the figure inside as well.
Yeah.
You know, again, make sure it's nice. If you're going to make the investment and you want a high grade, make sure you think it looks pretty nice. Just like card grading, same idea.
Yeah. I'm just throwing this out there. As soon as you started talking about the elements of the grading, I'm curious, is there ever an issue in starting lineups with, like, you know, fakes or maybe packages being opened with, you know, pieces being replaced or anything like that?
Sure. Cards, yes. There's some unreleased cards out there that were probably cut off sheets many years ago, like Walter Payton comes to mind. 88 Walter Payton. They never made a figure of them, but there's some cards out there, and there are some fakes as well. So that you have to be careful with. As for figures themselves, I mean, it's not like it would be in other toy markets like Star Wars, G.I. Joe, Transformers. There's really no one's out there 3D printing, you know, a 96 Ken Griffey Jr. It's just not feasible. It's not worth it.
Right.
So stuff like that. Resealing, you might have to worry about a little bit. But as for, like, counterfeit figures, I don't think there's nothing, not yet anyway, not that I know of.
Yeah, but it's good to know, right, that for the most part it's you have authenticators out there. Anytime you have, to me, the element of a reputable authenticator out there, there's that peace of mind. If there's really something I want that has that high, you know, value to it,
Sure.
You know, before, especially if you're in a beginner stage, let's say like myself, there's that peace of mind maybe of diving into getting that rarer piece because, you know, it's been authenticated by that company. So
it lets you know what kind of shape. First of all, you know, I mean, let's be honest, we buy everything online nowadays. I mean, you know, it's just how it is. And if you see something graded online that's, you're looking for a mint 96 Clemente, and you see one online that's graded an AFA 85, well, you know you're getting a mint figure.
right.
You're not worried about where you're going to get it in. There's going to be a bent corner, the bubble's cracked, or you're not going to have to worry about that anymore. You know, so that's a good aspect of it. But again, a figure like that's not worth grading unless it's a personal preference.
Right, right. So, Joe, to end today's interview, I'm keeping a tradition going. I don't know if you've seen previous, but you're in the penalty box right now. And I'm going to hit you with 2 questions I ask everyone. So first off, if you had to give up that entire collection behind you, all of it, except for one item, what would it be and why?
It would be a Bo Jackson prototype that I have. It's actually headless. It has no head. And the reason, it's not like I'm this big, huge Bo Jackson.
Is it like a Renaissance medieval edition?
You know, the funny thing, I have the helmet, but there's no to him. It came in parts. The head, the arms, the weight, they all came apart. And I picked this up, oh God, maybe 6 or 7 years ago. Someone contacted me. They had a Kenner connection, and they had two prototypes, and I usually buy stuff that's pretty nice. These prototypes can easily they're hand paint, they're airbrushed.
Okay.
Letters and the numbers are like a dry transfer, so they chip very easily.
Right.
So I find ones that are pretty nice, pretty perfect. And so he had these two figures, and he's like, "They're the headless Bo Jackson. Would you be interested in that?" I'm like, "I don't know." I said, "I don't. That's really not my thing." He's like, "Joe," and I don't remember. It was a crazy cheap price. It was low. I was like, "Fine, I'll take it." And I took this Bo Jackson. Fast forward to 2015, I was interviewed by NFL Films. They did an actual show on my collection, and
That's fantastic.
that Bo Jackson was the centerpiece of the show. So I could never give that up. I mean, no offense, but to be interviewed by NFL Films is pretty.
No, that's amazing. I hope I get interviewed by them one day.
It was super cool. Probably the best 6 hours of my life,
Yeah.
And, they came to my house. They filmed my collection. They filmed me. It was on national TV. I mean, what more can you ask for?
Yeah.
But that piece was the part. They ended the show with that piece. So I could never give that up. It's just the story behind it's amazing,
Yeah, no, that's great. And it's like in every, and that's why I honestly, Joe, I love asking this question, because it typically the answers are always jaw-dropping, like that one. And the other thing is, it kind of the common denominator with a lot of these answers is that there's an amazing story behind the piece that you're holding on to, sentimental value, or just an amazing chapter in your collecting, life, like in this case with you, and that memory that you're never going to lose. That's just something you can't put a price on something like that. That's just amazing.
I know.
Yeah. So the last question for you is, outside of starting lineups, what's the one hobby that interests you the most, and why?
Let's go outside of toys, because I'm a big toy collector. Let's just go outside, if that's okay.
Of course. Yeah.
I love vintage cars. I love 70s, just muscle cars, Jeep, stuff like that. I don't own one. I don't but I'm fascinated. I mean, I watch every YouTube channel and show, and I watch them all. I love just vintage automobiles. 70s, early 80s. I love. I think that stuff's great. So that's
wow.
Yeah.
Well, can I tell you that the first car I ever owned was an '82 Z28 Camaro with T-tops? Yep. And we popped the 305 motor out, and I put a 400 block in it.
Just for a little more power. Yeah.
True story, man. So yeah, I could, maybe we'll do a whole future episode talking about cars.
There you go.
Joe, I can't thank you enough for this. And honestly, I love talking anything hobby, especially with someone that's so well versed, so knowledgeable on it. I hope the viewers get a lot of value out of this. Before we sign off, Joe, please, can you share any information about you, any websites, your handles, where people can get more information if they want to learn more about starting lineups?
Yeah, there's a KennerCollector.com website. That's a great informative site for anything Kenner, really. They have a lot of great stuff on there. There's a few interviews of me on there with starting lineups, some pictures of my collection. As for me personally, just type in Curch, C-U-R-C-H, and you can find me on YouTube, Twitter, Facebook, Instagram. I'm on them all. So I don't have a website or anything like that. But if you type in Joe Curcio starting lineup, you're probably going to find me. Yeah.
You're at Google status.
I am on Google somewhere, I promise.
Yeah. Joe, thanks again. And I hope we can talk about this again in the future. I really appreciate your time.
Anytime. Thank you so much for having me.
Great. We'll talk soon. Take care.
Bye-bye.
Hey guys, thanks for watching today's video. Please click on the like and subscribe button. Just a couple quick updates. We are officially live on iTunes, Google, as well as Spotify for our podcast. Go to hobbynetworkgroup.com for more details and links. Thanks for watching today's video and have a great day. Bye.